kind of compound made of a ligand and a radionuclide. So hopefully the ligand will be trapped by the cancer cells, and the radionuclide will kill or at least damage the cancer cells. So in this example here, you can see that when we are targeting neuroendocrine tumors, we know that those cancer cells for those tumors have somatostatin receptors. So the compound is made of somatostatin analog, which is coupled with the lutetium-177, and then the particles released by this by the decay of this radionuclide deals to damages to cancer cells. So the most recent and known therapy like this is the one with the lutetium PSMA for prostate cancer, but there are several other therapies. This is very promising treatment with several phase 3 clinical trials that demonstrate the efficiency of this therapy. And as Mark told you before, I won't go into details here, but you need to keep in mind that this kind of therapy make a very huge change in the nuclear medicine department. They are used to make images, and maybe 95% of the activities in the nuclear medicine department was imaging, and now it starts to the therapeutic activities start to increase a lot, so it changes a lot in therapy. So the outline of this presentation is the following. I will describe in a pragmatic way in order to perform dosimetry for this treatment from images. I will speak about a little about Monte Carlo simulation, and then a very brief overview of AI for SPECT image enhancement at the end of this presentation. So let's start with image-based dosimetry. For the targeted radionuclide therapy, you need to keep in mind that a key point is that we use images all along those treatments. So we use images well before the treatment in order to see if this kind of treatment could be given to the patient. Then we use images just before the treatment in order to plan it, to check that the compound is really well into the tumors. Then we use images during the treatment, and this is what we call theranostic application, because it means that with the same radionuclide, we treat the patient, and then we can have images of the deposited activities inside the patient, and then we use images after the treatment. So here we will look mostly on the PET imaging. So when we couple beta minus emitters to the beta plus emitters to the compound, the ligand, such as the gallium-68, we obtain PET images just before the treatment. And once the treatment starts, we inject to the patient lutetium-177 that give birth to electron to treat the cancer, but also some gamma that can be imaged by a SPECT imaging system. And then we can check that what has been planned is really happening in the patient. So our goal here is to make dosimetry from those images. So it means that we need to transform the activity distribution observed on the SPECT images to absorb dose distribution from Becquerel to Gray. So if you heard the talk from Mark previously, you know that those image-based dosimetry is very crucial for this kind of treatment, because it will allow personalization and to have an idea of the dose-effect relationship, not only for the toxicity, but also for the efficiency of the treatment. And maybe in the future, we may be able to adapt the dose to the activity to each patient. So how does it start? We start by, as input, several images for the same injection. We acquire images at several time points, maybe a few hours after the injection, 1 day after, 2 days, etc. Then we need to calibrate those images. So with some SPECT imaging system, the resulting images are in detected counts, but it's not sufficient for quantification. So we need to calibrate those images in order to have Becquerel per milliliter as unit of the pixels. There are several ways to do that. I will not go into details. And then we need to segment region of interest, not only anatomical organs, but also lesion. This is a very tedious task, and usually in the past, in the nuclear medicine department, it was very difficult to ask physicians to make those anatomical delineation. But since few years, we have some AA-based anatomical segmentation tools that are very useful. There are a lot of them. And for example, in our institution, we use an open source software called Total Segmentator. There are others that provide a very good delineation of most of the organs in the patient. It changes everything in clinics because in 10 minutes, we can get all those delineation for the patient. It's not perfect, of course, but and needs manual check, but at least you gain a lot of time. So you get the images, you get the region of interest. Now it's very simple to compute the total activity in every region for every acquisition, and then we can integrate all those values in order to build a time activity curve like this one with the red point corresponding to every the total activity in every region of the images. And then, in order to go from those activity to the absorbed dose, we know that the absorbed dose is related to the total amount of activity over the time. So we need to compute, to integrate this curve and get the value of the green part here. And then the second step will be to compute the delta value. I will come back on that in a few seconds. So the first step is then to estimate the integration of this curve. This is usually done by fitting a kind of model, a function, to these few points. So usually we use some exponential curve or multi-exponential curve. There are several models that have been proposed in the literature. And the key point is to be able to fit the uptake and clearance phase of those curves. Okay, I will skip that. So the optimization process in order to fit those models is quite conventional. It's a function with several parameters. We need to find the best parameters value with an objective function. Usually it's the sample differences between the data point and the model value. And we need a strategy to make these parameters optimization in an iterative way. So there are several functions to do that. And for example, we can use the least square Liebenberg-Marquardt. And at the end of this algorithm, you get a value for every parameters of your model, and you can integrate it very easily. In practice, in our group, we decided to use a method that has been proposed by Jackson a few years ago. It's a 3-exponential model. We have more parameters than the number of data points, but that's not a big deal because they propose a very clever and ad hoc method in 3 different steps in order to fit the uptake and clearance phase of this kind of curve. So this is very, at least in our experiences, very efficient to do this. We perform this fitting model in a region by region, but we showed some years ago that it could be theoretically feasible to do this for every voxel in the image. So it means that we consider a set of voxel or a set of models with several types of multi-exponential models, and we try to fit every time activity curve for every voxel in the images. It requires, of course, that you align the images very well. And then when we perform all those fits, we select the best model according to the Akaike information criteria that use the residual of the fit plus the number of parameters. So it's theoretically feasible to compute the time integrity curve for every voxel in the images, but because the images are a lot of uncertainty, a lot of the resolution of the SPECT images is very bad, we think that it's still not ready for clinics. Maybe in the future, these types of method could be used when the quality of the image will increase. Okay, now we have the integrated activity in Becquerel hour, for example, in a region, and we need to go from this activity to the dose. And of course, it depends on the radionuclide, but also in the tissue of the patient. And we need to take into account all the particles that are emitting during the decay of the radionuclide. There are several methods to do that. The main one are the following. Very briefly, the first method is the local deposition model, where we assume that all the doses stay within the pixel in a way. So we just need to multiply the activity by a special value that can be found in several papers in the literature. So that is very fast, very simple, but of course it may be not the most accurate methods. We have the merged S-value concept, which is well known, I think. It's slightly more, it takes into account surrounding organs, not only the current region of interest. And also you can find some tables in literature that provide you with the factor that you need to multiply your integrated activity in order to get the dose. A bit more advanced method are the kernel-based method, which is a simple convolution of the image with a kernel that has been previously computed by Monte Carlo simulation. And each different radionuclide that you use, lutetium, yttrium, or actinium, whatever you want, should be, you need to compute a specific kernel for that. It's very fast, but if you don't have this kernel, it could be tedious to get the specific kernel for your own radionuclide. And the last method is the Monte Carlo simulation. Usually it's known to be much longer, so it's a slow method. However, I will show you that it's very simple to put in place in the following slide. So let's go to the second part of this talk. So when you want to perform a Monte Carlo simulation in order to compute the dose for targeted radionuclide therapy, there are very few steps to do. The first is to use the CT image as a medium, as the tissue. So you start by the CT image of the patient. Then you consider the SPECT images as the activity source distribution of the patient. And then you start your Monte Carlo engine that will decay all the particle of interest, lutetium, for example, and that will simulate all the electron, gammas, all the particles that will be emitted during the decay. So at the end of the process, you track the particle and you measure the deposited dose in the 3D matrix of result, and you get the dose rate of the patient. What about the computation time? If you need to compute the full and the real activity that has been injected to the patient, this is very long because you need 7.5 gigabecquerel for each patient, but you don't need that. You only want that the statistical uncertainty reach a certain level. And we show that with only a fraction of the real activity, you can reach for whole organ this uncertainty very soon. So with 10 or 20 minutes, according to the complexity of your scene, you can obtain a very good estimation of the dose in every organ of the patient. It's still slower than the conventional kernel-based method, but this is very easy to put in place and very easy to change the radionuclide, for example. I want to show you now that we use in our daily clinic a Monte Carlo code called GATE that is based on the shoulders of Gen4. Maybe you already heard about it. So this code allow very easy simulation of dose deposition for any radionuclide that is in the database of that are in the database of Gen4. But it allows also to perform some simulation of the imaging system that are such as the SPECT or PET images. And since a few years now, I think we started during the COVID period, we started a very new project with GATE. We call that GATE 10, and we refactor GATE such as the user only have to use Python in order to describe a simulation. So this is still a beta version. The official release will be proposed to the public in few May, but you can still use it. And by a very simple pip install OpenGate, you get everything: Gen4, OpenGate, root, ITK, and other packages. It takes a few minutes, and then you are ready to go for your simulation. And if you want to go to do absorb dose estimation for this kind of therapy, I will show you the code that you need to do for that in 3 steps. So this, if you know Python, I hope you can see, yeah. If you know Python, you will recognize a lot of conventional way to perform Python. Start by importing the OpenGate package. Then we create a simulation object with some option. I provide here some example of options. I think you can guess yourself what is about. Number of thread is number of thread that will be used during the computation. This is the random seed for your Monte Carlo engine. Then, because it's Gen4, we decided to have every number associated with a unit. It makes the code very clear, and I think it's something very important and very powerful from Gen4. This last 2 lines just set the size of the world that will contain the whole simulation. So in few lines, we set up a first simulation. Oops, sorry. Then we add, with those lines, a CT image of the patient. So it's the simple command add volume image. And then I provide the file name of the CT image of the patient. Could be a DICOM, could be a MHD file name, or Nifty, or whatever you want as the image file format. We have one function, Hounsfield unit to material, that converts the HU, the Hounsfield unit in material for Monte Carlo simulation according to a tolerance in the density. So in 5 lines, you already set your CT image in the scene. Then the next lines describe the source of activity. In that case, it's mostly the same function. It's not add volume, but add source. This is a voxelized source, and we provide the name of the image that contains the spec'd images. We said that the particle is a lutetium in that case, and that's all. Everything else will be managed by the Gen4 engine. Of course, if you want to change your radionuclide, that's 2 seconds world here. Next point is the physics. This is very conventional physics, so we decided to use a conventional Gen4 physics list, the EM standards option 3, option 4, whatever you want. We enable the decay because we will decay the lutetium to have all the product of these particles. We can set some production cut. I'm not sure it's very necessary here, but at least you need a small cut within the CT of the patient. You can yourself guess what is doing this line here. I just said that the production cut in the CT for all particles is 1 millimeter. So it's conventional Gen4 projection cut. And then I had a scorer in order to have the dose deposition inside the patient. And this is performed by this option that define the size of the matrix. And then we run it, and 10 minutes later you have an estimation of your dose. So, of course, I didn't give all the details. We have let available also as tools. So I think we hope that it could be useful for this community. So thanks to those tools, we managed to compute the dosimetry for almost all the patients that go into our institution. So this is some example of the result that we can obtain for neuroendocrine tumor patients. So for 13 patients, for the kidneys, for the liver, and for the spleen, and for the 4 different injection cycles of the treatment, we compute the dose and cumulate it. So I will not go into details here, but you can see that there is a large variability between the patient, and that's why it's so important to perform those computations. We did that also for the lutetium PSMA, and we obtained also those kind of colorful results, and we just check that the value that we obtain are close to the one that have been already published in the literature, and we are more or less in the same direction. So it means that with those tools, the open source tool, you can set up your own dosimetric workflow in your clinical practice. I will not go into details, but SPECT image acquisition, whole body SPECT image acquisition for this PSMA treatment is very long for the patient, but we are lucky to have this Veriton CT SPECT system in our institution that allow to decrease a lot the acquisition time. So if you're interested to know more about it, we publish a study that show that with a 25-minute acquisition, we have almost the same accuracy that with a conventional 45 or 1 hour acquisition time with a conventional SPECT system. Okay, so let's start the third part of this presentation. What is for you the most limiting factor of image-based dosimetry? I think I already told you this is the very limited image resolution of the SPECT system, because with conventional SPECT system, the PSF is around 12 or even more millimeters. So it means that if you want to obtain quantification and accurately quantify the activity inside a very small region, you will get a very large uncertainty. So this is the main issue with this image-based dosimetry. So there are several ways to improve those issues. Most of the commercial reconstruction software use resolution modeling that is included into the reconstruction software in order to decrease this uncertainty. It works well, but it gives rise to Gibbs artifacts that show some strange hypo and hyper signal in the images. We can try image-based deconvolution, but it has been shown to increase the noise of the images, so usually it's not really used in clinical practice. If you have an idea of your region of interest, you can apply a correction factor for every different region of interest based on the volume or the shape of the volume, but for that you need segmentation. It's not always feasible for the lesion, for example. So in the group, we start to study and make some tentative study to see if AA can enhance these images. So we create a database of pairs of images by simulation. So we simulate conventional realistic images with gate, with a large, with the conventional collimators, with noise in the images and very bad PSF. But because it's simulation, we can cheat a bit and change the property of the collimator and obtain ideal images. And then we have pair of realistic and ideal images. And by doing so, we can generate thousands of images and then train a neural network in order to transform those realistic images into ideal images. So this is a very simple neural network. There are two neural networks in reality, UNet and ResUNet. One is denoising and the other one predicts the ideal image from the realistic one. I won't go too much into detail, but that's very conventional image-to-image techniques. And I can show you some results here. First on phantom data. So on the left, top left, you can see the ellipsoid source. So this is what is simulated into the Monte Carlo system. On the bottom right, you can see the ideal reconstruction that could be obtained with if the SPECT imaging system was perfect with a very infinite collimator, let's say. This center image show you what you obtain scratch from the SPECT imaging system if you don't correct for the partial volume effect. So it's very blurry, and if you make quantification here, you can obtain large uncertainty. On the right, this is what is usually obtained from conventional commercial system with resolution modeling correction factor. So it corrects a lot of this blurring effect, but still give birth to ring artifacts with a very large hyper signal on the boundary of this ellipsoid sphere. And this is what we can obtain with the deep learning method, which is in this example, very close to the ideal one. So, of course, we perform some quantitative evaluation, and for example, the root mean square error, we obtain slightly better results with these deep learning approaches rather than the conventional resolution modeling. So it's still work in progress, it's still not perfect, but we can use it on real data images of patients, and you can see in these images, on the left, no correction direct from the SPECT images acquisition. In the center, this is the okay, I almost finished. This is the one that we can obtain with the resolution modeling, so we can see that we observe a better signal for this lesion here, and this is what we can obtain with the deep PVC methods. Of course, we don't have any ground truth, so we don't know exactly what happened here, but at least it seems to go in the right direction. Okay, so I conclude. I hope I show you that the targeted radionuclide therapy is rising. It changed a lot the daily routine in the nuclear medicine department. We think that image-based dosimetry is crucial, but it may be require care in order to provide a reliable dosimetry estimate. I think that Monte Carlo simulation is more easy than people could think. And it's very easy to install this version. So please give it a try and send me an email if something is going wrong here. And maybe in the future, we think that AI may improve also the image quality, which is the weakest link in this gene. So I conclude with this invitation. So we organized the next 20 international conference on the use of computers in radiation therapy in Lyon in July. So this is the first time that this very old conference will be held in France. So the deadline for the abstract is already gone, but you are still welcome to visit us in July. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, David, for this very excellent presentation. Actually, one of my co-workers is going to that conference.
Yeah, great.
Are there any questions? Yeah, Weibo.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the talk. For this conference, you have online possibility to join?
No,
oh,
no,
yeah.
not. It's in person.
Okay. And another question is, you mentioned the deep learning. You have your own package, or you have using the GATE integrated?
For the deep learning, it's outside GATE. GATE is only used to generate the images of the database, and the training we develop our own, but it's based on PyTorch, so the conventional toolkit for this.
The results, you mean the real images, you mean the results, the real images? Is this the patient images?
Yeah,
okay.
This is real images of patient. So on the left, this is the conventional reconstruction without any partial volume correction. On the center, this is the conventional correction, and on the right, this is the deep learning correction.
Because in our pilot group, we have also exercises set up for the machine learning, not deep learning. Maybe I can contact you to using your package
to
have a compare, to have a control. Maybe.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? If not, then I have a question. You said that you would have to do the Monte Carlo simulation for each time point.
Yeah.
Why would that be? Because usually you still could use the activity integral.
Yeah, there are several ways to do that. What we are doing right now, we do it for each time points to obtain the dose rate, and then we make the activity fit on the dose rate.
Okay.
It can be done in several ways. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But we are currently trying to compare these methods, but it's still unclear which one is best.
Yes. Well, there has been work in a European project. It was called Metro MRT.
I think I heard
10 years ago, which actually came up with some recommendations, I think, also regarding the time points to choose.
Yeah.
You're probably aware of that.
We try to change the time points, but for logistical reason, we didn't manage to do that. So usually it depends on the patient, the clinic, so it's difficult to change.
Yeah, one thing is the mathematics, the other thing is the practice. Okay, then let's move. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Let's ask for the gate version 10. That means I can use this for the microdosimetry calculator as well?
Yes, I'm not expert in microdosimetry, but I know that the DNA, the Gen4 DNA physics list are already can be enabled in gate 10, so you can use it. Yeah, for microdosimetry, that's for sure.
The electron cut energy about how many E-folds about?
You can change it.
Okay.
So it's Gen4.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, then let's thank David again. And we come to our last speaker, which is Elly Castellano from the Royal Marsden Hospital. And she's also head of the diagnostic radiology physics group. Interesting combination. And she's also with the British Institute of Radiology, something like vice chair? No.
Vice President.
Vice President.
At the moment for publications.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hans, for that lovely introduction, and thank you to the organising committee for inviting me to speak this afternoon, and thank you all for staying all the way to the end of the conference to listen to my talk. So, let me just make sure I've got this. Yes. Okay, so let's look back to February 2011. A summit was held in Bethesda in the United States, looking at the management of radiation dose in CT, which has been a concern for a number of decades. The summit drew together 120 delegates from academia, from healthcare, from industry, regulatory and funding agencies. And they sat down to consider what steps needed to happen in order to reduce CT doses to sub-millisievert levels, so less than 1 millisievert. They came to the conclusion that CT doses could be reduced tenfold by these 4 steps. First one is to optimize the X-ray spectrum and the tube current, which are used to image patients, by, for example, providing a greater range in kilovoltage settings or using additional filtration in the X-ray beam. The second step would be to develop new detector technologies, and at that moment, the work that was being carried out was on photon counting detectors. The third step was to develop novel image reconstruction and post-processing techniques, because if we were to be able to move to sub-millisievert imaging, we were going to be looking at using low photon counts in order to produce our projections, and possibly also we would have incomplete projection data. So we needed means to reconstruct images from those. And the sort of things that were being looked at was iterative reconstruction, compressed sensing, volume of interest imaging, and interior tomography. And then last but not least, we needed to make sure we had the tools for fast, objective protocol and radiation dose optimization. And again, the thoughts at that time were heading towards task-based image quality metrics that could be implemented quickly to evaluate lots of different protocol parameters. This is an ambitious journey. It's also a complicated journey, because CT doses cover a couple of orders of magnitude. We have, for example, for a CT scan of the head, we have an effective dose of around about 2 millisievert. The actual organ doses are quite high, but in the head, we do not have very many radiosensitive organs, so the contribution to effective dose is quite low. On the flip side, we've got CT scans of the torso, such as the chest, the abdomen and pelvis, and the doses here can be in excess of 10 millisieverts, can be over 20 millisieverts for the chest, abdomen and pelvis. And here we've got lower organ doses, but of course that's where the bulk of the radiosensitive organs are. Another factor is that for different diagnostic tasks, we need different image quality, and that means we're going to use different doses. So you can see here that for chest scans, we could have a routine scan delivering 14 millisieverts in the UK, but this could be as low as 3 millisieverts for a high-resolution CT scan of the chest using a specific technique. And then similarly for the abdomen, we've got a standard abdomen and pelvis delivering a dose of 13 millisieverts, but for the kidneys, ureter, and bladder, that could be halved. Then the thing that this table will not show you is that we use different doses for different sized patients, very specifically for children compared to adults. The second thing that makes this a complicated journey is as we head towards sub-millisievert imaging, the dose delivered from the CT localizer radiograph becomes relevant, and we need to take that into account. So just to give you an idea, for a CT scan of the head, that radiograph will deliver a dose of less than 0.1 millisieverts. Actually, we're not terribly sure. For the chest of the abdomen, it's around 0.2 millisieverts. Now, Nina's already referred to this, and this is that as we start on this complicated journey, at the same time, we have experienced changes in the ICRP definition of effective dose, and there has been an evolution of the dosimetric phantoms from geometric through voxel to hybrid. And the consequence has been that effective dose coefficients have changed. So these are the dose length product to effective dose coefficients for 5 different regions in the body. This is from work from Jan and his colleagues. And you can see that this evolution hasn't really affected the coefficient for the head, but for the chest, it has doubled it. So we're trying to reduce doses, but the effective dose definition and the change of the dosimetry is driving the doses up. So what I want to do in this talk is go through the various ideas that were put in during that summit and just try and capture where we're at in the journey. So let's start off with the optimization of the X-ray spectrum and the tube current. Now, tube current optimization is the first thing I want to talk about, because even as the summit took place, tube current modulation was pretty much ubiquitous in the clinic. We do have manufacturer-specific solutions which make implementation quite challenging, but generally speaking, the tube current prescription is determined by the patient cross-section, as you can see in this pale blue function there, the patient eccentricity, as you can see from the oscillation around the pale blue, and with the all scanners, we have also an opportunity to switch on a modulation that reduces the dose to radiosensitive organs such as the eyes or the breasts. And all the manufacturers with their tube current modulation algorithms will aim to keep image noise constant or will allow the image noise to increase slightly with patient size. Now, this poses a challenge to CT dosimetry. Now, we have got organ and effective dose conversion coefficients available both for the geometric phantoms and the ICRP reference phantoms. They are normalized to a number of CT dose metrics, CTDI in ICI muscle, weighted CTDI, volumetric CTDI, and dose length products. And we're very lucky in that these conversion coefficients are incorporated into CT dose calculators such as the impact dose calculator and NCICT, and there are others. These calculators were originally designed to be used with constant tube current, but there are now methods for modeling tube current modulation, and if you're interested, you can have a look at these 2 publications in the literature. The first one, Tian et al. In Medical Physics, is based on scaling of the tube current the scaling of the conversion coefficients according to the local tube current prescription. And the second technique is based on convolution of the dose conversion coefficient function with the tube current function. And I understand that NCICT version 2 incorporates tube current modulation, and Nina also referred to this functionality in her talk about the ICRP dose calculator. So that's great news for us in the clinic. Let's move on then to X-ray spectrum optimization, and we are now seeing in the clinic a wider range of keV settings. In particular, we've moved down from 80 keV down to 70 keV, which is very handy for imaging children, and we can go all the way up to 150 keV as well. And alongside that, we've got higher tube current settings that allow us to fully utilize these lower keV settings, which intrinsically will have lower tube outputs. The scanners will have an automatic keV selection mode, whereby the tube voltage will be automatically selected according to the patient's size. And once that choice is made, it will be further refined according to the imaging task. So hopefully you can see here a slider that allows you to define your imaging task, which could be unenhanced CT, or it could be soft tissue imaging, or could be vascular CT. And depending on where your slider is, the tube voltage choice is different. Now, there are some dosimetric considerations resulting from these changes, and that is whether the existing normalized organ and effective dose coefficients can be extrapolated to 70 kV and 150 kV. And definitely my concern is whether they are valid down to 70 kV, and I still can't find anything in the literature. Perhaps I've missed something. If so, please do let me know. The last thing I want to say about X-ray spectrum optimization is that one manufacturer at least is offering an additional tin filter. It's available at 100, 140 and 150 kV, depending on which scanner model you have from this particular manufacturer. What this tin filter is doing is reducing the tube output by 90% at 100 and 75% at 150 kV compared to the tin filter not being there, which allows us to image with a fairly hard beam at low doses. Obviously, this is going to have an effect on the organ and effective dose coefficient, and there's a recent publication this year which has worked through the Monte Carlo with these beam qualities, and what they have found is that both the organ and the effective dose coefficients have increased for the chest and the abdomen and pelvis relative to the reference kV, which is 120 kV, and they found changes of between 3 and 19% for the abdomen and pelvis for organs, and effective dose 12 to 21%, slightly less big changes for the chest. There's also been some work done on what the impact of using the tin filter in the CT localizer radiograph is, and this is work done by Bieber et al. And they have calculated that for the abdomen, the effective dose could be as low as 0.01 millisieverts. So that's an order of magnitude down on the CT localizer radiograph. So with a tin filter, it becomes less of a concern for the dosimetry. Okay, let's move on to the detector technology. And I just want to do a quick review of what the current CT detector looks like. It's a two-dimensional array, typically with 0.9 millimeter detector pixels under an anti-scatter grid. The pixels comprise with a scintillator, which collects the light produced by the X-ray interactions. And then there are underneath that, we've got a photodiode, which collects the light and stores the charge, and then the electronics, which will take the charge away. These are individual elements which are separated by septa. The signal that we detect is the total light emitted, which in turn is proportional to the number of X-ray photons and their energy. And for this reason, these type of detectors are called energy integrating detectors. Now, photon counting CT detectors have matured during the last 13 years, and what we are now have available are photon conducting CT detectors based on semiconductor technology. There are two types of material currently being developed. The first set are based on silicon, which is a low atomic number material, and then the second type are the high Z materials, such as cadmium telluride and cadmium zinc telluride. Now, silicon is no stranger to diagnostic imaging. It's used in mammography. Cadmium telluride, cadmium zinc telluride are newcomers for us. And the challenge for these detectors has been the high X-ray flux that we encounter in CT. So let's look at photon counting CT detector in a little bit more detail. It's a two-dimensional semiconductor layer of appropriate thickness, because we're trying to at least match the detection efficiency of the conventional solid-state detectors. And this semiconductor layer is sandwiched between a cathode and a pixelated anode and below an anti-scatter grid. So here the X-rays interact with the photoconductor. They produce an electron charge cloud that is then collected using a bias voltage of around 1 kilovolt, and then the electronics pick up the signal. The electronics will detect individual photons, because each X-ray will produce a voltage lasting about 15 nanoseconds, so you can see them happening here. The pulse height is proportional to the energy of the photon, and if the pulse exceeds a threshold value, which you can see here, then it will be counted, so each photon becomes one event. And it is possible to apply energy discrimination if you use additional threshold voltages, as you can see here, T1, T2, and T3. So why are we so excited about photon counting detectors? Well, the reason why that is because they offer improved spatial resolution and reduced blooming, because the detector pixels can be made smaller and the detector pixels can be made up of subpixels themselves. And as long as the X-ray focal spot is small enough, then we do have a potential there for high spatial resolution imaging. Also, we have the possibility of reduced image noise, because by setting a threshold value for detecting pulses, we can eliminate electronic noise. And we know that as we reduce the radiation dose, electronic noise in a conventional CT scanner will become more dominant, and we would not be able to reconstruct good quality images. Then we're also looking to improve contrast to noise ratio for iodine, because there will be equal X-ray weighting with our photon counting detector. And all of these together gives us the opportunity to image at lower radiation and also, or alternatively, lower doses of intravenous contrast. At this moment in time, we have one clinical photon counting CT scanner. That's the Siemens Neotom Alpha. For those of you who are familiar with the fleet, this is a forced dual source scanner which is cardiac enabled. It has got an X-ray tube with 3 focal spots which are exquisitely small, and the detector is set up so it can be worked in 2 ways. So the first way is the standard way, which uses the full detector configuration. We tend to talk of detector rows, so 144 rows times 0.4, giving us an overall coverage along the axis of rotation of 57.6 millimeters. That's comparable to a conventional Siemens CT scanner. And the pixel size is 0.3 by 0.35 along the axis of rotation. We can use the central section of the detector in an ultra-high resolution mode, which gives us 24 millimeter coverage and very tiny 0.15, 0.18 millimeter pixels. So if you remember, conventional detector is about 0.9, effect is about 0.6 to 0.9. To go together with these very small pixels, we have now got image matrices varying between 512 and 1024. And hopefully this pair of images gives you a taste for the potential for dose reduction that we might be able to achieve. This is work done in 2022. What I'm showing is a low-dose skeletal survey of a 74-year-old male. Same dose on both sides, CTDI of all 4.2 milligray, and very similar image acquisition parameters, slice thickness, and reconstruction kernels. And what you can see here is an almost 2-fold reduction in image noise, which means we've got the opportunity to reduce dose by a factor of 4. Let's move on to novel image reconstruction techniques. So at the time of the summit, iterative reconstruction had been around for a few years. Today, we're now on third generation iterative reconstruction. And the reason why we get excited about iterative reconstruction is because the iteration process reduces image noise, whereas the convolution process of filtered back projection always increased it. So we should be able to reduce doses without sacrificing spatial resolution. But obviously, we always have to be aware that detectors do need a minimum X-ray signal in order to work. So here we've got a pair of images from an early iterative reconstruction algorithm from GE, and you can see that the image noise has been reduced from 23 down to about 14. So again, there's quite a significant potential there for reducing dose. Now, however, iterative reconstruction has been slow to be adopted clinically. It has different image texture, it has different artifacts. We have found that low contrast structures may be smoothed out at times, which obviously has clinical implications, and also anatomical boundaries have been less distinct. So the radiologists have been struggling to identify organs and boundaries of pathology. And some particular models have had very long reconstruction times, which meant it hasn't been feasible to use them clinically. And I've got some images here, but I suspect under these light levels, you probably can't quite tell the difference. But this is the filtered back projection as reference. This is iterative reconstruction with two different strengths. And the strength 5.1 here, the image is very smoothed. So at the time of the summit, delegates were thinking that one of these techniques might come to help with the image noise. Noise reduction techniques were incorporated into IR algorithms, so definitely they've helped to solve the situation. Compressed sensing, which has been used extensively in MRI, hasn't made much of headway in CT. Volume of interest imaging, we've already been using it because we use beam shaping filters, which tend to reduce the X-ray flux away from the midline when we are looking at imaging either the head or the heart. And interior tomography, where we're collimating the X-ray beam in plane to the anatomy of interest, really has not moved on because of the difficulty in correcting for the truncated projection data. However, what has happened is been artificial intelligence, and we started to see deep learning reconstruction algorithms. First one was introduced in 2019, that was Canon's ACE. This is a deep convolutional neural network which has been trained on model-based iterative reconstruction image patches, so it learns how to separate structure from noise. Canon have carried on with our work. They now have precise IQ engine, which is trained on projection data, which has been obtained from our high-resolution CT scanner, and this allows them to do spatial resolution recovery. And GE have been working on this topic as well. They have True Fidelity, which is trained on filtered back projected images. So one of the things that's happening is that different manufacturers are going for different looks in their CT image, and one of the pieces of work that will need to be rationalized is what we want CT images to look like, and this is where the radiologists will hopefully have a strong voice. I now want to move on to the last topic, which is protocol optimization. And one of the things that has happened over the last 13 years or so is that departments are more aware now that scan protocols must be selected according to the clinical indication, the patient age, and possibly the patient weight. So this is an example from my own practice. This is a high-resolution CT scan of the chest. We have different protocols for adults and for children. We have got more than 8 clinical indications for this scan, and we've got 3 different protocols that we can use. So this table just says, for this clinical indication, use this protocol. And then similarly for children, we've got different clinical indications. We have got 3 protocols, and we actually have weight-specific protocols as well. We also have we need and have better protocol optimization tools. So we have improved selection of anthropomorphic phantoms. Some people print their own using 3D printers, and we use these now for quick and dirty human observer studies when we're trying to set up a new scan protocol. For more robust methodical analysis of different protocol parameters, we now have task-based image quality metrics where we've taken the noise power spectrum and the task transfer function, which we can measure on phantom images, and combine them with mathematical model observers to yield a metric that mimics a human observer. An example of this is the detectability index, and here you can see the detectability index for coronary artery detectability with photon counting CT, and this is measured in a small, medium, and a large phantom for a whole array of conditions, and then compared against what the conventional CT scanner would do, which is the dotted line. So, as in any journey, sooner or later we ask the question, are we there yet? And a quick look through the scientific literature shows that we do have scan protocols that are delivering effective doses at or below 1 millisievert. So in the chest, we've got a clear example, which is lung cancer screening. We also have studies showing lower doses for cervical spine trauma, and also we've got lower doses for coronary artery disease scanning, coronary CT angiograms, which is potentially a screening study as well. How have these dose reductions been achieved? Predominantly by the use of the tin filter, iterative reconstruction, and also judicious use and selection of the KV. Looking at the abdomen, we have got sub-millisievert doses for CT colonography, which is another screening study, KUB and CT scan of the abdomen and pelvis when monitoring Crohn's disease. Again, it's been iterative reconstruction and the tin filter and judicious use of kilovoltage that have got us here. So, in conclusion, I would say that some millisievert CT scanning is possible, particularly if the clinical indication is screening for disease or surveillance of chronic disease. We've achieved those reductions by optimal X-ray spectrum selection, iterative reconstruction, and active scan protocol optimization. We are at the moment on the cusp of photon counting CT and deep learning reconstruction algorithms, so we hope that they will extend sub-millisievert scanning to other clinical indications. So, just leave you with a few references if you want to read more about the topic, and I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elly, for this excellent overview and for being perfectly in time. Questions? Rick. Okay.
In some ways, it's a question for two of the speakers, really, Nina and Elly. And I think the use of the tin filter, coming from a radiation calibration point of view, that it makes a lot of sense. And there's no point in having all the low energy photons which have almost no chance of getting through the patient. They don't add to the image quality and they add to the dose. So that's great. But now I'm wondering whether are the ICRP reference CT doses using a tin filter or not? Because obviously the doses go down quite a lot, and it's.
So I would say the change of output's not a problem. It's the beam quality that is the issue, and it does have an effect, as I've shown on the study I presented showed on the organ and the effective dose conversion coefficients. So we do need to be able to take that into account, because otherwise we're patting ourselves on the back by reducing doses, but actually we could be 20% out when we calculate our effective dose.
Another question. Once you've got the doses down lower, I guess, does it mitigate in favour of CT, where you may have just done a conventional X-ray in the past and now suddenly the sort of clinical benefit's quite clear that the CT will be the process the imaging you would prefer?
So I think CT's just got a bad reputation because of the dose, and normally it's head-to-head with MRI, and if you are, and for a number of clinical tasks, that they will both do the job. And for CT, the argument, it gives radiation dose, MRI doesn't. For MRIs, it costs a lot of money, so it's not readily available. CT is more readily available. So I think this is a driver to try and even the odds and just allow clinicians to use CT without feeling that in some way there is the detriment to that patient is not as great as it would be. I mean, I've had discussions with pediatric radiologists over MRI, because I will say, well, how about the general anesthetic that you're having to give to the child if they have an MRI scan? Whereas with CT, you can quite often just do the scan with a patient, with a child asleep, with no sedation, or just so quickly they don't even notice. Yeah, I think there is this detriment. The radiation risk is a detriment, and if we can reduce it, then that detriment is less, and I think the clinicians will be happier. And I think the patients will be happier as well, because I do quite often have to speak to patients who are concerned about their radiation dose, particularly if they are having regular CT scans to survey how that treatment is going and so on.
Do you think we might see a sort of rebound effect with collective dose as CT scanners, they get more capable, they can show a lot more, so clinicians might feel, why should I not scan the patient and see everything that I can? Whereas you might want to tell them, no, you don't need to see everything, and you're having to kind of cap the quality of the images that they're getting.
Yeah, that's a really good question. If the doses become so low, we don't need to worry about them. And definitely in the US, they have an idea that, I think it's below 100 millisieverts, we shouldn't worry. There is, however, the resource issue, and that is we have limited imaging capacity. We cannot image everybody to the extent we want, so we would always have to be clear about what we want to get out of the scan. An MRI takes a long time to scan the whole body, so we don't do that. We focus on the region of interest, and I think in CT we would have to do the same as well.
I have a small question about the X-ray spectrum. You measure the real spectrum, X-ray spectrum, or you generate from some software?
We generate it from software, so
okay.
we can measure, we know what the peak kilovoltage is, we can measure the half-value layer, okay. And then we've got spectral software generators
yes.
to generate the spectrum if we need it.
That means you have a package integrated in your system to generate the spectrum.
Which system are you talking about?
I mean the software integrated in yours.
In the dosimetry software?
Yeah.
Or,
yes.
So normally, yes.
Okay.
So normally definitely my own Monte Carlo simulations, I generated a spectrum using a separate spectrum calculator and then incorporate it into my Monte Carlo. But that's a very old system that is now long retired. Yeah, but I think probably someone like Jan Jansen can probably answer that in more detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Do we have some questions online? No.
Silence.
Okay, I see no more hands, so let's thank Elly again. It was a really very nice presentation, very excellent. So, even though I have not been part of the organizing committee, I was asked to sum up or to wrap up the whole thing. So as I'm not part of the organizing committee, I can congratulate the organizing committee to have put together a really interesting and inspiring winter school. It was definitely worth coming here today. And so, well, we had been covering quite a large range of topics: flash, grid, dosimetry, dosimetry for ion beams, LED optimization, several approaches to that, and then radionuclide applications, and concerns of the ICRP or developments at the ICRP, BNCT, and now also one of the things that might be really closer to EURADOS, which is basically radiation protection and reducing doses to the patient. So that was really a very good overview over current topics in dosimetry and very well fitting to EURADOS. So, okay, Liliana, you were the chair, so the chair of the organizing committee, well done. And with these words, I would like to close the, whatever it was, 16th or 17th, 17th? Winter School of EURADOS, and wish you everyone a nice evening in Oxford, and thank you for coming here. Thanks, particularly thanks to the speakers, because it was really a very great event. Yes, and that's it.